All right. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. Today is, again, November 16th, 2022. I'd like to call to order the regular City Commission meeting. And will you call the roll, please, Mr. Wiley?
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Here.
Commissioner Adam Marl.
Here.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell.
Here.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Here.
And Mayor Denise McGriff.
Present. Would you please join me in the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. About 2 seconds that I couldn't remember the pledge of allegiance. All right. So tonight on our agenda, on item number 3, we have some ceremonies and proclamations, and it is my pleasure to invite Liz Hannum, the Executive Director of the Oregon City Downtown Association, and Sydney Bray, who is the owner of Live Edge Eco Salon, to come up and chat with us for just a few moments and be recognized. She can sit on the same side or whichever side, doesn't matter. So anyway, for the public's benefit, November is Small Business Month, and the state just recently put on the Oregon Main Street Conference, and Oregon City was highlighted with 2 awards, one of which was the Small Business of the Year award, and the other was it Most Innovative Promotion? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce Liz Hannum, and she's going to tell us a little bit about the Promotion Award and the award that DOCA nominated Live Edge for.
Yeah, Oregon Main Street does these awards every year for the Main Street organizations across the state. There are almost 120 of them affiliated with this program. We all nominate people or projects or property owners for the different awards, and we won 2 awards this year. The Promotion Award was for the Oregon Trail Game virtual run. With the pandemic, we had to go virtual. We didn't want 500 runners all gathered together for the day. So we offered it virtually, and you could run, walk, dance, whatever, the 2,000 miles from Kansas all the way to Oregon City. Independence, Missouri. Yes. So 2,000 miles, and we had 85 people finish it. It was along the way, each of the way stops, as you put in your runs or your walking, you got an email that highlighted a different historical era and the location, like Fort Kearney and Independence Rock and Chimney Rock and the Dalles. So that was the run, which was really fun. And then we also nominated Live Edge Salon for the work that they've been doing both here in Oregon City as well as in Tigard in their downtown. We nominated them because they've been working really hard. This year they expanded this year into the Tigard location, renovated and saved a historic building downtown. And they've also been doing some really amazing DEI work that we just saw a presentation on. And so I'll let her talk a little bit about what kinds of programming that they put on. But we won, which is pretty exciting. Best small business in Oregon for the year in Oregon City here. All right.
So when Liz first came to me and told me that my salon was going to be nominated, it was just really cool to just even be nominated. There's a lot of really awesome businesses downtown that are doing a lot of the same kind of work that we're trying to do, and a lot of that is just a lot with not only inclusivity but also just sustainability. So our salon is an organic and natural salon. We have different recycling initiatives. We are able to recycle and repurpose up to 95% of everything that we use. salons in general, our industry creates a ton of waste. We produce 1 bag of landfill per week per location. And so like that was a big one. We are ammonia free, so not having chemicals and things that are harmful, which is kind of hard to do. All of these things, to be an eco salon, to promote that kind of stuff, it does take a lot of financial investment and a lot of making sure that our customers and our guests are really okay with that and also put into that as well. We also, with that, donate every month to different organizations, different local charities or fundraisers that help different, mostly minorities in our community. We also donate every month to Solve Oregon and put on volunteer projects with them and get our guests involved that way as well. And yeah, just really trying to do the work to reduce our carbon footprint and become a more inclusive environment. And another way that I'm also trying to do that is getting more involved with beauty schools. We're not being taught at the beauty school level how to do all textures of hair. It's not part of the curriculum, actually. It's not anything that you get tested on or you get a license for. You pass and get your license for beauty school, never knowing how to cut all textures of hair. And so it's really hard to be an inclusive salon when your providers and your service providers don't know how to be inclusive. So not only are we trying to teach our staff, but also showing up to the beauty schools and trying to change the way that our licensing is put together at the state level as well.
Well, I want to give your dad a little shout out since he did the interiors, and that's also some adaptive reuse with the materials. Would you like to just talk about that for a minute?
About the materials in the salon?
Yes.
Yeah, so when we built the salon, we just didn't want to use any mass-produced items. I grew up right here in Oregon City. I'm a 2008 graduate, so I've been here forever. And my parents have a farm out in Beaver Creek. And it's actually a lumber farm, and so trees can fall down, and my dad saves those. So what we did was building both locations, whether it's our stations or anything that we use, it's all made from fallen trees, or even other types of materials that we can kind of get our hands on. Like our big station table is made from what used to be a floating log in the Columbia River underneath a houseboat, or those types of things. So we try to be as sustainable as possible too, with all of our materials that we use within the salon. And my dad has in his retirement, he actually started his own business next to Live Edge Eco Salon in downtown Oregon City, just around the corner. It's Live Edge Wood Shop. But when I first opened Live Edge, I would sell his tables and stuff in the salon, and we actually just last Friday celebrated 8 years of being in business. So.
I'll just add for the economic development people in the room that they are changing the model of the hair industry as well. The chair rental system has been kind of the model to go with, and Sydney actually employs all of our hairstylists rather than having that chair rental model. So it's pretty exciting to have, living wage, healthcare, all of the benefits that go along with being an employee rather than a 1099 or a chair rental system. So it's pretty innovative the way that she's doing that as well.
So while you have an audience, why don't you just tell us a little bit about what's going to happen on Small Business Saturday?
Yeah, Small Business Saturday was created in order to celebrate the small businesses, the Main Street style businesses, since Black Friday is for big box stores. So on Main Street, we're going to do a giveaway. We have cookie cutters. We have 12 different locations downtown that each have a different design of cookie cutter. So when you make a purchase downtown, you get one of those cookie cutters for free. And if you collect all of them, you get a free cookie. So it's just encouraging people to shop downtown, to at least go into all the different retail shops. A lot of people don't know how much retail is actually on Main Street. So it's a good way to get people excited and buying good gifts for Christmas locally, so that the money stays local as well. Yeah.
Commissioners online, any comments? Or thumbs up? Thumbs up from Commissioner Mitchell, thumbs up from Commissioner Marl. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming, and I'm going to do the proclamation. I think for purposes of disclosure, I am the city's representative on the Downtown Association Board, and to set an example for my fellow board members, I did complete the virtual Oregon Trail Run. I was going to bring my medal tonight to show it, and I forgot, but I did it.
Yep.
And I don't know if I'm going to do it again, but
You eked in there.
I eked in, literally eked in at the 11th hour. I did the whole thing, so it can be done. And I have Orange Theory to thank for part of that, because I would go in extra just to walk and spend an hour many times a week going in there and getting my miles in, because you have to start out strong. I started out very slow. But thank you so much for coming, and we want to thank you for coming, and also to let our community know about what a great business we have downtown, and celebrate your success. And you get this to be celebrated all year long, because it's a year-long award. So thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Commissioners?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So I will read the proclamation. So, Small Business Saturday 2022. Whereas the City of Oregon City celebrates our local small businesses and the contributions they make to our local economy and community. And whereas according to the United States Small Business Administration, there are 32.5 million small businesses in the United States. Small businesses represent 99.7% of the firms with paid employees. Small businesses are responsible for 62% of the net new jobs created since 1995. And small businesses employ 46.8% of employees in the private sector in the United States. And whereas 79% of consumers understand the importance of supporting the small businesses in their community on Small Business Saturday, 70% of that day makes them 70% report the day makes them want to encourage others to shop small. And 66% report that the day makes them want to shop small all year long. Whereas 58% of the shoppers reported that they shopped online with a small business, and 54% reported they dined or ordered takeout from small restaurant, bar, or cafe on Small Business Saturday in 2021. And whereas the City of Oregon City, the Oregon City Chamber, and the Downtown Oregon City Association supports our local businesses that create jobs, boost our economy, and preserve our communities. Now, therefore, I, Denise C. McGriff, Mayor of the City of Oregon City, along with the City Commission, do proclaim November 26, 2022 as Small Business Saturday, and call upon all residents of Oregon City and communities across the state to support small businesses and merchants on Small Business Saturday and throughout the year. I will sign this document on the 16th day of November 2022. And I have a copy. I haven't signed it yet, but I will get a copy to you. I have a formal copy for Doka and for Sydney. So thank you so much. We'll go to the next proclamation, which is a declaration declaring November, we're a little late to the party, but November's still here, Native American Heritage Month. So whereas Native Americans have inhabited the area now known as Oregon City since time immemorial, and today 9 federally recognized Indian tribes and other tribal communities reside in Oregon, and whereas members and descendants of tribes in the United States and the First Nations of Canada also reside in the state of Oregon, and whereas Native American contributions and values have shaped the social, political, environmental, and economic fabric of the state while enhancing freedom, prosperity, and cultural diversity, and whereas State Law SB 13 created a K-12 Native American curriculum and directs the Oregon Department of Education to implement the Tribal History/Shared History program, and whereas the City of Oregon City joins with other cities and states across our nation in celebrating Native American Heritage Month, honoring the unique heritage of this continent's first people and affirming the commitment to respect each tribe's sovereignty and cultural heritage. Now, therefore, I, Denise C. McGriff, Mayor of the City of Oregon City, along with the City Commission, do hereby proclaim November 2022 as Native American Heritage Month, and call upon the residents of Oregon City and communities across the state to join the City Commission in acknowledging this special observance. I will set my hand on the 16th day of November 2022. So thank you, everyone, for that. Next on our agenda is item number 4. We have one citizen comment from Paul Edgar. Would you come forward, please?
Thank you, Mayor and City Commissioners and people, members of the community. First, I want to congratulate all of you candidates that were successful because you did this for all of us, the citizens, and I appreciate it. Everyone is part of the team, all of the people in management of Oregon City. I want to thank them, and I know the citizens want to thank you for what you're doing, and I'm glad the election's over. Now, the reason why I'm coming forward to you guys is to give you some information that I received as a member of the Clackamas County Community Action Board. We're trying to look at what we need to do for the health and welfare of the citizens of Clackamas County. And I thought it was important that this one graph that was in here that we could take a look at that talks about sustainability and what does it take. And it's interesting that in a future graph today, in tonight's meeting, we were talking about citizens of Oregon City having an income of $40,000. And I look down here at this chart, well, 40,000 doesn't cut it, doesn't pay for all of the costs that it is to live. And what we're doing, we're going into an era, a time, where it's almost requiring emergency mindsets, looking at what will be the impacts of people not being able to pay their rent or their house payments, put food on their table, get their kids to school with clothing, and have a future. We're going to find people that are going to be not being able to pay their house payments, and we're going to need new visions in how to create roofs that can be over the people's heads. And this is where I think that this is a need that needs to be ratcheted up a little higher in a level of importance. We can be reactive or proactive. And I believe it's better off to have a plan and to be working a plan and being ahead of the curve, not behind the curve. And that's part of, that's just what I'm trying to transfer to you. I just believe that when I go down here and look at a family that says, okay, they need a family, let's take a look, 2 adults and 2 infants. They have to be making an annual income of $75,000. And then we go through all of their deductions and things that they could come up. But in effect, what it really boils down to is that there's going to be a lot of people at risk. And then I backed into this originally when I was trying to think about people being able to afford to pay another $200 or $300 of tolls, the working poor, just to go across the bridge or have to go back and forth. And I thought, oh my God, but this is more than just some tolls. This is a lot of people being at risk. And I just hope that in providing this information, trying to, in my heart, believing that it needs to be ratcheted up to an emergency level of considerations for what we can do, that that we make some progress. Everyone's life is worth something. My hope is that we take steps to value life. Thank you.
We have no presentations other than what we had at our work session. So item 6 is the agenda, adoption of the agenda. Do we have anything that anyone would like to pull from the agenda, or do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'd like to pull 7B.
All righty. Anything else? Is there a motion to approve? Subject
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Would you call the roll?
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell. Commissioner Adam Morrow. Commissioner Mike Mitchell. Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Aye.
And Mayor Denise McGriff.
Aye. All right, let's go on to number 8, which is public hearing, second reading of ordinance number 22-1008, proposed annexation of 19024 Rose Road to the City of Oregon City, GLU A 22-00013 and AN 22-001. Do we need any additional staff report, or we just need to make a motion?
You just need to make a motion.
All right, is there a motion?
Move to approve second reading of ordinance number 22-1008.
Is there a second? Second it. All right, it's been moved and seconded. Let's have the roll call, please.
Wait, let me read it.
What? Oh, sorry, she has to read it. Sorry, I thought we read it, so.
Ordinance number 22-1008, an ordinance approving emergency annexation proposal number GLUA 22-013 AN 22-0001, and approving the annexation of certain property located at 19024 Rose Road to the City of Oregon City.
So before you call the roll, Ms. Hurd-Ravage, did we get any response back from the applicant? I think there were a couple of questions, but maybe they don't need to be, maybe they got taken care of.
No, not aware of any responses back from them.
Okay. All right, just double checking. I know there were some questions that a couple of the commissioners had with regard to timing, et cetera. So I don't know whether they watched it or they didn't know anything about it or whatever. Okay, please call the roll.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Morrow. Commissioner Mike Mitchell. Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Aye.
Excuse me, Mayor Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Motion passes.
So I think one of the, just before we conclude with this item, there was a couple of things that the commission had asked for when the next one comes around, so that we get some of those kind of questions answered before they get here, involved your concern about future development, timing, all of that.
Yeah, what we expressed before was simply that we don't want to use this as a backdoor avenue in the annexation. We do not want somebody to come in here with a 650 square foot home on 40 acres with a failed septic system trying for an annexation. If we need to take some measures to refine our policy, then I think that's what the commission was.
It was that, yes.
I think we had a consensus. And if you need that direction from 3 again, Mr. Conkle.
So, I don't remember when we had this discussion about emergency annexations, and the difference was that for an emergency sewer annexation, they didn't go to the planning commission.
Right.
That came straight to the city commission. So we've been talking a little bit about, so since we made that change, emergency sewer annexations are processed just like any other annexation. So I understand what you're saying. You know, we've got the state law DEQ requirement for within 300 feet of a sewer, you know, we have to allow them to hook up. But I guess I wanted to make sure that we were clear that since now it's going through the planning commission, I'm not even sure that we really need to call it an emergency sewer annexation anymore. There will be a connection, but it's processed, evaluated against the same criteria as if someone didn't have a sewer. So annexations are treated the same: public notice, public comment, planning commission, same criteria. So I don't know if that helps with kind of just wanted to clarify that they're all run the same, other than the fact that if they're within 300 feet, regardless of if they're approved or not, we still have to provide them the sanitary sewer.
Well, that helps, but what I want to call to your attention was for the first time in the 6 years I've served here, I became aware of something called an extraterritorial
Extension of the
extension,
service.
where you can get sewer service without being annexed into the city.
And that's where we're driven by the DEQ health requirement, that if your property is within 300 feet of an existing sewer line and you have a failing septic, we're required to provide them that extraterritorial connection, which is why we try to then push them into annexation so that you are paying for the city, all the city services. I mean, when you think about, I think there's two parts to that. One is, I don't remember when we did this, I was relatively new here, but we did the island annexations. I mean, I think it was like 27, somewhere in that number of islands that had been created. And one of the policies in the comprehensive plan was to try to avoid the creation of islands. And so what we were seeing was if we didn't annex in these smaller lots, the larger lots around them would eventually annex in, and we ended up with these islands. So that was one component. And then the second one was being this close into the city. And this is the policy discussion. Do we annex them in? Because if there is a police call, we're probably going to be the first ones to respond. They're using the library, they're using the pool. So when do they become part of the city from a taxation component? For the services that are being provided, essentially. So those were that was kind of the evolution of that discussion over 20 years.
Yeah, I understand all that. I'm not sure. I mean, I understand they're going to use city services whether they're annexed in or not. They're going to use the library. It's county affiliated anyhow. And yes, the police department will probably have to respond in the interest of exigent circumstances, I imagine. I'm not sure that the tax benefit derived from the annexation of the small lot offsets the services provided. But, my main concern was I don't want to play games with this where we use it as a method of getting in 40 acres and one small homestead. And that's my concern. Other than that,
Yeah, well, I mean, I think for me, it's anything that would be over, anything that could be subdivided later on. I mean, I know when we did the island annexations and we had this, some of those very small lots, I don't think that, to me, that's not the issue. But I do appreciate what you said, City Manager Conville, about the fact that really probably isn't an emergency, other than if DEQ says, okay, you got to do it. And we've been in that situation before, so we know what DEQ is going to ask us to do. So it's okay. All right. Sounds good. All right, so are we prepared to talk about parking? I'm going to put 7B in there right now.
So my sort of question is, do you want to do a deep dive or do you have a few questions? If you want to do a deep dive, I'll go grab my laptop. If you have just a few questions.
I think just a few questions.
Okay. So I'll say, just to sort of catch everybody up then on what this is we have proposed purchasing, so a little bit of history on parking is we've always operated with coin meters for a long time. A number of years ago, in addition to the coin meters, and in some of the areas, we installed these kiosks. So people would come and use their credit cards to pay and put a little slip in their window. Over time, the kiosks that we have were at the time 2G, and I can't explain everything about mobile phones, but 2G was as fast as those kiosks work, and we cannot change the hardware that's in there to get them to do anything other than that, and that just does not work with the system anymore. The other problem with these older kiosks is they're now making thinner credit cards, and so a lot of customers are having a hard time getting the credit card to read in these kiosks. Around this time, as we're looking at the industry and looking at what other cities have done, apps have obviously become quite popular. And so the app that you approved that has been initiated downtown has been quite successful, and people are figuring out how to use the app. We had originally talked about, if this is so successful, do we just leave just the app in place? we sort of feel that people need an option. There are some people who have a hard time with the app and figuring that out. So we knew we had to replace the kiosks. So our sort of plan and the map that you see is based on what our enforcement folks see and what they think would work well. My sort of direction to them is if somebody's downtown and they can't figure the app out, I want them to be able to look somewhere to a corner and see a kiosk. And so we're reducing the number of kiosks a little bit, but people should be able to walk to a kiosk without having to cross the street. That was the whole idea here. And we're going to expand some kiosks up into that northern end. There's a lot going on that way between corner 14, what's going on with food carts at OC Brewing, Kennard. There, I believe, is going to be more and more growth onto that and development of Main Street. We're also having conversations about the parking under the railroad and what is going to be the best future use of that. And so this, that's what this is about, is buying 16 kiosks to replace the ones that we have and then add some to the north end. And yet we're going to keep the app, and in the future, someday it's very likely that there's something that on the phone that's so easy that we don't need kiosks anymore, but we believe for right now that we need them.
Well, I'm actually glad that Commissioner Smith pulled it because I thought about pulling it. And I only saw a dozen locations, so if there's 16, maybe I just missed the others.
So I'm confused by the map because the map shows, the original kiosk map shows 13.
And then you go to the proposed.
The proposed shows 12, and we're buying 16. So I'm confused by that.
Can you see on the map up to 15? I was trying to start counting from there.
Yeah.
I got a dozen, 2 times I counted.
I counted 12, yeah, that's what I see. So we're not talking about one per, we're not even talking, well, I know in Portland they have one in the middle of each block on both sides of the street.
Yeah, this one's more like one block on, basically one a block, but not either on one side or the other.
Yeah,
alternating.
they're not.
So it's less, but it's less because of the app,
Yeah, so,
which I understand, but.
So why aren't they like in the middle of the block?
Well, this is, like I said, this is based on feedback from the staff who are on the street every day enforcing. And say, look at 9th Street. If you're up 9th Street, if you look toward Main Street, you should be able to see a kiosk. If the kiosk was in the middle on Main Street between 8th and 9th, you're not going to see a kiosk. So if they're on corners, you're going to be able to see them from cross streets.
Well, let me give you the counterpoint to that. So I don't use Parking Kitty because I'm not in Portland enough. That's their system. But I know that they're mid-block. So no matter where I am, I know where they are. I can, if I'm at one end of the block, I know I can walk to the middle of the block, and that's where they always are. And to me, that seems like a very logical location for them. That way, if you're on the corner, at 9th Street, you come, there's nothing on 9th Street. I mean, in the real world, they'd be on 9th Street. I mean, if we had more money, they would be on 9th Street. There would be some on 10th, they would be where we don't have a bucket load of money, but, in Portland, which is my only experience, and then let me skip that. So I've also used the parking meter kiosk in Vancouver, down in their new waterfront. Now, those were a little more difficult to figure out where the heck they were. They had a parking lot, and then when I walked out to the street, I'm looking up and down the street, and I didn't really see one. So I don't know what their system is, but that's the only other place I've used them before.
For me, it was more, I wanted to ask what the value proposition is. How much revenue do we generate? What's the cost? What's the enforcement cost? I mean, is this a good value proposition for us? We're going to spend $225,000.
Just jump in when I want to. I'm the one that pulled this. I want to say, I'm holding my patience here right now, but I pulled this, and I had asked one question, and I haven't got an answer, and you guys have now derailed this whole thing. So can I actually ask my questions for why I pulled this agenda item?
You were asked whether you had just one question or you had...
No, I was asked whether I had a few questions
Okay,
or
go
whether
right
I
ahead.
needed to get his
Please.
laptop. And I said I have a few questions.
Forgive me,
And I
please
didn't
go
get an
ahead.
answer to my first question, and then you derailed it.
Please go right ahead. Excuse me.
How many kiosks are proposed? Because the map says 12, we're buying 16, and previously it was 13.
So when I said I had looked to a quote that is in the staff meeting and I saw 16, that's where I got that 16 number.
So it's not 16?
To be honest, I don't know. So here's something I would say. If you would like to give us direction on where you want the kiosks to go, and we can add kiosks if you think there need to be more. The other thing is we can always go back and add kiosks. If we need to, we can also move kiosks. We don't really have to install any wiring when these are in there. We just need to put a base. They're solar, and then there's a battery pack that they operate under.
So a couple other questions. One is, there was an agenda item that was coming to us about parking, which I think was about parking and adding days, possibly adding blocks. That has not come to us yet. And I assume that's coming to us at some point. No, I'm aware of that. But that agenda item was mainly adding weekends and something else, but I can't remember what it was.
Well, I believe what you were talking to referenced the end of the parking study, and we were going to bring before you, we were going to look at the zones, the permit parking, like on Railroad and other areas, and do an analysis of whether or not we wanted to keep those as they were, change some of those spaces to day use or 2 hour, 4 hour, whatever spaces.
But so far, this commission hasn't heard anything about adding meters to 15th Street on 5 blocks of downtown that have never been charged. And therefore, we're buying kiosks for blocks that we haven't even had a conversation about charging people on. Which implies if we approve this, that we're going to be charging people for 5 blocks from 10th to 15th, which has never been a conversation at this level. Or I assume without even any sign off from downtown or talking to any of those local businesses. So how does this get on the consent agenda?
Well, I think...
I don't disagree.
Okay, I have no more questions. I can't approve it tonight.
Yeah, I think that the best thing is probably for us to bring this back and for me to have Ryan in here.
Yeah. I think. That's all I have.
Well, I think that there could be a slight amendment. I think we could approve the area that we already currently have kiosks in and get those, because I can tell you there's a lot of people that get aggravated with it because
Then make a motion.
they don't work, and then leave the rest of it to come later. So the second question that you asked was about the parking study. So I believe, and the staff will correct me, so with Kelly leaving, she was the one who was managing the program to deal with the downtown and McLaughlin area parking study. So they just came to the McLaughlin neighborhood to present because we didn't have anybody to do that with our staff. So it is now going back through a process of talking to the community and stakeholders, so that I believe that is why it has not come to us at this point.
May I make a motion to postpone this until that process is finished?
Which process?
The whole process that you just mentioned.
Oh, you mean the parking study?
Yes, well, no, I'll just postpone this and say that we want to table this until the next meeting at the earliest. But I think there needs to be a public process for adding 5 blocks of parking to downtown, which clearly has not been a conversation with the downtown
I would agree
or the
with you.
businesses. That's my motion.
Yeah.
I'll
Can I
second that
throw
motion.
something at you? or just something else to think about.
Sure.
Even if it were amended, so if we put in an order today,
Call for the vote, please.
I seconded the motion.
Yes, there is discussion. I would like to ask staff to
And
answer
discussion
to answer
happen after the motion.
the question. No, you can still have discussion once there's a motion and a second.
I did because the number of units you may or may not buy is dependent upon the decisions to be made.
And we don't even know that number
And we
tonight.
don't know that number. And secondly, I would like the input of the downtown businesses. I mean, is this a plus or a minus? What's the revenue stream? Is it worthwhile? I just think it needs a little bit extra information before it comes for a final decision. And that's why I seconded the motion.
Chief Ban.
well, the only thing I would say is, if we order these now, they're not going to get here for a long time. And I feel like we could, but there's the issue of, are we going to have to replace the kiosks? The kiosks that are downtown right now are an existing system that has been a revenue generator that has existed, that will continue to exist. The kiosks are not working, and the people feeling the brunt of it are the people going down trying to pay. The issues with the credit cards and the fact that these things break down and they don't get good coverage based on 2G. So that's not a new system. You're absolutely right, this aspect of 15th, and that is looked at as a future placement. I feel like that is a big conversation. I feel like if we put the purchase of these off till that's over, I don't know how long it's going to be in terms of what we're going to run into with those systems downtown, the kiosks. Now, if that happens, people still have the option of the app that they can use. They're always able to use that app. I don't really have a dog in the hunt. I just want you to have as much information now so that later on, if it's taking forever to get those things, that you've heard all of this information. Because this isn't a new system. I can get you those stats. It's all downtown parking. This is just a part of us phasing out coin-operated machines. These kiosks already exist. No, there are not new ones up on 15th. I do feel like between now and the time that we get them, we can get that stuff figured out. That's all I got.
Mr. Mitchell or Mr. Morrow, before we call for the vote?
So I appreciate that explanation, and I get that they need to be replaced. However, I wasn't even to get a response about what the correct number was we were going to replace, or the correct number that we were going to order. So having just not even the basic answers, that's what I'm shocked by, honestly. Because if it was that we were just replacing the ones that need to be replaced, then it would be a done deal. But that's not what we're being shown in this report. And so then it's like, okay, if we did that and replaced the ones that are currently there, that's one thing. But that's not what I'm seeing here. And then having 5 blocks added implies that if I wouldn't have pulled it off the consent agenda, we'd have 5 more blocks of parking downtown where people were paying for parking and had no idea that was coming. And that should be shocking to the commission. Anyone that's tied to downtown, that should be really shocking that no business owners have been asked about that, and that was on the consent agenda tonight.
Well, I agree with Commissioner Smith. The only other thing I'd say is I agree with fixing the current situation, but what's the unit price if you buy 12 versus 16?
Right.
Can you buy 12 for the same price as 16 with an option to buy the additional 4? And I believe you certainly have to coordinate and speak with your downtown businesses as to what the effect is. So I think there's questions that can be readily answered and come back and get this thing done. But again, I look at unit prices too. 12 at this price or 12 at the 16 price, I'd be fine with that. But we don't know that answer tonight.
Call for the question.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell,
This is to postpone it. My vote is aye.
Commissioner Adam Morrill,
Aye.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell,
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith,
Aye.
and Mayor Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Motion passes.
So we'll bring this back to the next regularly scheduled commission meeting, Chief.
Well, one clarification, that the quote we have is for 16 machines. The map may say something else, but that's where 16 came from. I just looked at the quote again, it's in that information.
Yeah, I saw that.
If, in terms of the next meeting, to do basically, for me to give you that answer, we've got to go look at what has been done in the parking study, which the police department did not do. That's what Kelly Reed was doing that you were talking about. And that is a large conversation. And so I don't think, now we could go one of two ways. We could just, we could reduce the number and come up with a map to just replace the kiosks that we have, which I think my preference would be leave the north end out of it right now, go through that deep dive process, pick back up with the parking study and figure out that whole piece, and just come back to you with replacing the kiosks. It'll be a reduced number so that we can operate as we've been operating downtown. It's probably going to be a few, maybe a few fewer kiosks than we have in the downtown area where they are now, but I think that would probably be best for the communities to get those replaced, if that makes sense.
Back to our next meeting, which is what the motion was.
Yeah, I would prefer that you do that because, again, as somebody who parks regularly downtown, I have the app, but unless you do it at home and get it downloaded onto your phone, you can't do the app right there on the street. So you can still put your money in, but it is much simpler. I mean, I can be anywhere in downtown, and I always use kiosk 1010, and I just put it in. I might not be parked near 1010, but it's in there. So if you could do that for the 7th, we can get those existing ones replaced, because they are a pain in the whatever. And there's too many people that, I've helped over time when I'm down there, helping them do it. So.
Okay, so just so I have clarification too, what exactly, Commissioner O'Donnell, you talked about revenue and those sorts of things. Do you want that included, sort of what we bring in currently with parking?
What we bring in terms of revenue directly, and I suppose you may as well include enforcement revenue because that's part of it. But then the other thing I think is a simple answer in conversation with this vendor. The 16-piece price is $13,000 a unit. I'd love to see it come back and say they give us the option to buy 12 at that price with the option to buy another 4 within 6 months, should we so decide, and lock that price in. I don't want them to come back and say the 16 price is 30. I don't want to be within the 16-piece total price to buy 12. It's just business negotiations to me. What's my 16-piece price? What's my 12 with an option to buy 4 within 6 months? They can answer that, Chief.
You're asking for a proposal with a contingency, which makes sense.
Right, then we can get that immediate situation solved, which I agree with, and then don't let the additional thing hold us up.
Yeah, because I agree with you, Commissioner Smith, about the tie to the parking study, but it's not totally cooked yet. There's still citizen involvement going on, and if we're going to talk about the adding areas, that doesn't affect what we need to do right now, which is replace the ones that are basically breaking down and don't work. And you know, as a downtown business owner, you know that as well as anybody else. So, all right, Mr. Lewis. So we're excuse me. Sorry. I jumped ahead. Mr. Reed is going to get a complete conniption here. Sorry, Kendall. I jumped ahead. So Oregon City Park Master Plan update.
All right. City Commissioners, Mayor, the Parks Department kicked off its Parks Master Plan project with Pros Consulting in April of 2022. On June 1st and June 2nd, we conducted numerous stakeholder interviews with key leaders in the community, committee members, city commissioners, and staff. That was followed by a statistically valid survey that was conducted by ETC, and then we also launched our online survey. And so tonight, I have Pros Consulting here to provide an update on the current findings and review the results from the statistically valid survey. Jason?
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for the opportunity. Thanks, Kendall. May I share my screen here?
You should be able to.
And don't forget to just quickly introduce yourself.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Almost. Getting there.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. Brilliant. All right. So, getting straight into it, Kendall said keep it short, so I promise we'll be done in about a couple of hours. I'm kidding. Just wanted to see if you're paying attention. So we'll go through this quickly. Just as a quick recap in terms of the process. Any planning venture of this sort, and I've had one-on-ones with so many of you, so I know we briefly talked about this, but our idea is looking at these three phases. Where are we today? Where are we going to go? How will we get there? We've done a lot of the where are we today, as Kendall referenced right now, through the community input process that we're about to show you. We've had some initial input from the community in terms of where they want you to go. Jason and I will be there with Kendall and his team as well in the first week of December to also get staff involved in establishing the vision for the future. And then early in the next year, we will then talk of the final phase with respect to implementation for how we will get there. So with that in mind, I want to quickly share some demographic and trend updates and projections so we understand what's the community going to look like that we're going to be planning for. And Jason, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, sir. So as Eli said, we have some demographic and trend data for Oregon City. We like to start off with the information that comes from Trust for Public Land, which shows us the percentage of the population that lives within a 10-minute walk from park. In Oregon City, we see that number is at 77%, which is quite a bit above the national average of 55%. So when we talk about access, we know that on an above average rate, the citizens of Oregon City do have access on a higher than average level to a park within a 10-minute walk. We then look at the demographic overview of the city. So this comes from ESRI, which is the Environmental Systems Research Institute. This here is the map that we utilize for the city boundaries. First graph that we're going to look at here is the population. And what we see here is that we have some really rapid growth in Oregon City from 2010 census to the 2020 census, going up at about 1.3% a year. For reference, the national average was about 0.76%, so Oregon City grew at about twice the national rate over that span. We see the population is going to continue to grow, or is projected to continue to grow over the next 15 years, with the rate kind of fluctuating a little bit, but still kind of being right around that national average during that time period. Next chart we'll look at is the race ethnicity makeup of Oregon City. So again, we're seeing some diversification coming in the population at this point. 2010, we saw a population that was 91% white only. And we see that over those next 10 years, that number has dropped to 82%. An increase notably in the 2 or more races demographic, and that number is also expected to grow over the next 15 years to 16% as the population diversifies over that time frame. Our Hispanic Latino population, from a racial standpoint, we see that is currently at 9% with a little bit of growth expected over the next 15 years as well. Look at income here, and age segments is next. We see an aging population. So currently, we have about 31% of our population is that magical 55 and older. As Eli likes to say, we refuse to call them seniors. They don't act like it. These are our active adults in our population, and that number, 31% now, expected to grow up to be 35% over the next 15 years. Let's keep our eye on this population as they are more active, and make sure that our recreation programming mix is being suited to this growing population.
Jason?
Then last but not least, we look at our income.
Quick question.
And to the gentleman's point, public comment earlier, yes, Oregon City does show up as being above average from a per capita and median household income compared to both the state and national averages, but This obviously doesn't show the cost of living in Oregon City, which is also quite a bit higher than national and state averages, so that needs to be taken into consideration as well when we have these charts. So next we're going to look at some of the demographic trends for Oregon City. These are also taken from Esri. So what we'll be talking about here is the Market Potential Index, which measures the probable demand for a product or service. So any number you see here is going to be based on a national average of 100. Any number over 100 is going to show that the population of Oregon City is more likely than the national average to participate in this event. Any number below 100, they would be less likely to participate compared to the national average. So first one we're going to look at here is the general sports chart. We see that we're going to be above average in both volleyball and golf, right at the national average in football, a little bit below in those other activities. For fitness, we see that the population is actually at or above average. Next slide, Eli. Thank you. For fitness, we actually see that we are at or above average in 6 of the 8 listed activities. Swimming, weightlifting, walking for exercise, yoga, jogging, running, Pilates, all being at or above that national average. Aerobics and Zumba right at that number, but slightly below that 100. And then last, but definitely not least, in our beloved state of Oregon, outdoor activity, where we see a lot higher, much higher than average numbers for fishing, canoeing, and bicycling and archery. So in Oregon, being the beautiful state that it is, the outdoor wonderland, as I like to call it, a lot of interest and participation in those outdoor activities. I will now hand this back over to you.
Jason, before you do that, just for context, let them know just your experience in Oregon as well, if you wouldn't mind, please.
Yeah, so I spent 20 years before I moved out here to Indianapolis, which is where we are now in Oregon. I worked for the Waterline Park and Recreation District in Springfield, Oregon. It's been very nice to be part of a project. Got a chance to come home a couple times for the trip, so it's been awesome. But I miss it. Miss the hills, miss the topography. Very flat here in Indiana, so it's nice to make it out there when I get a chance.
What are you talking about? We have a really big mound behind my house, man. Come on. There's variety here. So, speaking of community, philosophically and literally, our approach throughout this process has been going where people are. And one aspect of that in the digital space, we built an ADA accessible and multilingual project website, orcityparksandplay.org. That will continue to share information, and as we get more reports, we'll continue updating those here as well. There is an open-ended comment box, so people have a chance to share input at any time in the process, and we have the upcoming meeting as well advertised there too, so people have a chance to engage in this, not just at a certain point in time, but throughout this entire planning process. The next slide is really hot off the digital press, if you would. Kendall is the only one who knows this yet. As of this morning, we are processing, and it is being reviewed by the hidden gods at Apple and Google, if you would. But you're going to be the first city in the entire Pacific Northwest to have an app that allows your community to share real-time feedback for any park, any location at any time. Anonymously through pictures, videos, and text. And this is going to be one of the aspects of inclusion and innovation, if you would, to ensure that anybody that wants to share input in this plan has a variety of ways to do so. So we expect this app to be approved and launched within this month itself. And as I said, that's going to be a really cool thing to be able to let people know through QR code to your existing sites, from Urban Tinker to the pool to every other place where people go to and have a chance to be able to share feedback as well. Some things that we've already done and gotten feedback for. This is obviously the most reliable source. It is scientific.
Can we stop for just a quick
It
second?
mirrors the demographics of Oregon City, conducted independently by a firm called EPC
Kendall?
Institute.
Can we
And the
stop
last
for a minute?
bullet you see, all that mumbo jumbo.
Yes. We're getting a question from
Oh, sure.
with.
Where do those survey responses go in the parks? Where are they sent to and what will be done with them?
Are you talking for the app or the statistically valid survey?
You go to the app, who ultimately, which staff member or department sees that input and what would they do with them?
Yeah, great point. So for the app, the feedback can go to a combination of sources. And you have the ability to customize that. So in order for instant responses specific to a site, Kendall and his team will get all input, and Kendall can then further customize based on what site, who else could also get the feedback. What we do is we'll capture every one of the inputs that come in, and they become a part of the master plan's data input and stay in the plan document as well. And in addition to that, that's where staff reacts to things that may be more operational in the near term versus more visionary in the long term that might be acted upon or be added to the planning document. And it goes via email to your staff so that there's no one potentially publicly sort of, going at you on social media for something that may or may not even be accurate and have you feel like you're on the defensive to react to it. It'll directly go to your emails, to the staff's emails.
Kendall, can you hear us? Kendall, how would you use this tool?
So one of the things that we want to do is getting feedback from the community. If they see different issues in our park or facility, and they want to communicate with us, we want to be able to give them that level of access so we can respond quickly, and I can assign it to someone who can respond to address any complaint, any feedback that we receive through the app.
So I presume that you would assign a staff member to monitor this and call things to your attention that needed your immediate attention.
Yes, sir, and I am also on the app, so I will be getting that information as well.
My other question is, I saw that survey of participation in different sports. Was that specific to the Oregon City community? It was.
Jason?
Yeah, so that is based off of the Oregon City population. Yeah, so Esri utilizes the market potential index, which based off of the community shows the likelihood people in that community will participate in specific. So these are Oregon City specific.
Yeah, I understand that with the general sports because I was active in Oregon City youth sports for years. I was more interested in the other one. I was unaware. The answer must be, do you enjoy things like archery? And you say yes, so you go in there. I'm not aware of any archery range that we have.
Me neither. Or horseback riding.
So.
It's basically what this is saying is what it's more of a guess based off of the population that lives there as to what they would participate in if they had access to it. So while we might not necessarily have archery right now, what Esri is saying, what these numbers show is that if there was access to archery, the population of Oregon City would be more likely to participate in that than people in national average.
Okay, then I would ask that you clarify what that, you said outdoor activity. So there should be a dash saying, if you were able to participate in this, would you? Because that's not clear from that at all. And I think the fitness one might be as well, as like you're saying, okay, are these activities that people are participating in now, or would they participate in them?
Yes, I understand what you're saying. The final report for the demographics and trends will have more of a statement on the methodology as to what makes a market potential index, which will clarify that in a little more detail. But that is the $5 version of what it is.
Okay, well, I appreciate appreciate that, but I think if you're showing this PowerPoint, that needs to be clarified on the slide because somebody won't have any idea and might not ask that question. So I see Commissioner Morrow has a question.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I was just wondering in that same vein if pickleball was, if there's an option to see what it is for that, because I do know that it is the fastest growing sport in the nation, and that as Kendall knows well, that there are a lot of discussions happening in our city about what that looks like.
Yeah, unfortunately at this point, Esri is not tracking pickleball from an MPI standpoint. We do have national data on pickleball that'll be included in the demographic and trends report in the final report. But unfortunately, yeah, this is one of the, for the Esri MPI, our potential index, we do not have one of those.
So, Mr. Mitchell.
Having said that, it might be a matter of time before Esri does it. I almost feel like they have to, given how fast it's growing. This is retroactive, so the results are released in July every year, and it's based on the data collected over the previous 12 months. So, by July 2023, there may very well be a prospect that they will, in this 12-month period, track pickleball and have that information specific to a jurisdiction, such as Oregon City.
Mike, do you have a question? Or shall they keep going?
Not at this point. I'll have a couple questions at the end.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so on the statistically valid survey, the way the process was that EPC Institute acquires the mailing list, has the shape files for your boundaries, and sends a mailed version with a cover letter from your end, that says this is it, and if you get it, please fill it. They follow up with a phone call a week later, and each of these surveys have a one-time use link that individuals or a household can respond to. So once they aggregate this information, then we get to see the results. No one else gets the raw data. So the results are, in summary, some of them to follow. So we asked about, have you or members of your household visited any parks, rec facilities in the last 12 months? And as you can see, nationally, about 3 in 4 people say, yes, we have. Oregon City is close to some of the best numbers in the country. Back to Jason's point about the outdoors as well. That's where almost 87% said, yes, they do. In addition, this is wonderful too. Only 1% rated you as poor with respect to the physical condition. You have about 83% that have said you are good or excellent. If I'm being nitpicky, I would say that 5 years from now, your goal through this plan ought to be, how do we shrink the number of people that say you are good and grow the number of people that say you are excellent, right? So that really is sort of shifting this from saying this is really good to wow, right? That sense of here's where I am. Excuse me. With respect to recreation programming, we're right at national average. About 1 in 3 people have said yes, they have participated. I think some of this is a function also of space and capacity. We heard from the community members as well. Talking to Kendall and some of the staff, I think there's certainly room for especially larger indoor recreation spaces that may allow for more programming as well year-round. But right now, this is where you are. And the other aspect is, and it's a lower hanging fruit, it's not unique just to you. However, I think for you, it's probably the single biggest issue. The reason people aren't participating is lack of awareness. So that's where some of these website, app, other outreach mechanisms are really helpful to perhaps lower that barrier. So as you see, about 1 in 3 people nationally cite lack of awareness. In your case, it's almost 2 in 5. So this would be an easy way for you in the future to invest in compared to building a brand new facility or expanding spaces to simply, be able to have the programs better marketed and the word reached, sort of shared with folks as well. Speaking of marketing, this is where folks learn about what you're providing and offering. By far, the number one is the recreation guide, and that's doing really well with 71%. Your website and social media are pretty good with 44% each, so much better than national average, which is commendable. I think it's something that needs to continue, and getting a better sense from the audience of what might be other mechanisms that you could reach out to as well to reduce that lack of awareness as a barrier. Another encouraging sign here as well, if I look at the numbers of people that have said, how has the perception of value changed? 60% of your residents and respondents say that in their minds, parks, trails, open spaces, recreation has somewhat or significantly increased. Only 4% have said it's decreased, right? So really, it's literally a 15 times more people feel that the value has increased compared to those that say it has decreased. And in light of that, how would they want you to look at funding? An outright majority would want to increase funding for parks, recreation, trails, and open space. And only 2% want to reduce the funding. 11% are not sure, 36% want to maintain it. This, the increased number, this is among the highest I've seen in the country. The majority of the places we see some split between maintaining and increasing. In your case, it is outright a significantly higher number. So people certainly value what you provide more and want to put the money where their mouth is with respect to funding as well. Now, this is where it gets a little tricky, and it's a marginal decrease only. But in this case, if you see, 51% want to increase funding, 46% are willing or very willing to pay additional taxes or fees to acquire, develop, build, all of those things with respect to the households and their needs. So again, a very encouraging sign in terms of your community saying, yep, we're very willing, we're wanting to support. I think the question, fees, an easier part. When you get to taxes, you're going to have more specifics for what that's going to go towards, as you know. And then what the audience, a fourth of them are neutral. Question just depends on what is the state of mind at that point in time. What's the economy like? What's inflation like? And what is it that you're going to put out there for them to respond to that they may provide the information for? Jason, I'm going to turn it over to you for the online survey and the comparison for a moment.
Yeah, so as Kendall said at the beginning, we also ran an online community survey. This was available for a month. It emulated the statistically valid survey, so we asked the same questions. Basically, this was open to any member of the community who wanted to take the survey. It was not, there was no statistically valid model attributed to it, so anyone and everyone who wanted to participate could. We made it available in English and Spanish. All told, we had 184 responses to the online community survey. Next slide is going to show a little bit of the side-by-side of those two surveys. So again, 184 responses for the online survey compared to 401 for the valid. The big takeaway here, the online survey, there is no precision rate or level of confidence due to there being no selected criteria for response. So the statistically valid survey is the only scientific and defensible method to understand the community needs, but the online survey does provide further insights on community expectations. So One of the big takeaways on this survey when we like to look at it is the breakdown of gender. It just kind of shows some of the in the online survey. So the ETC statistically valid survey, we see right where the demographic breakdown of Oregon City is. We had 50% of the respondents male, 50% of the respondents female, which is right in line with the demographics of the city. Compare that to the online community survey, and we see 76% of our respondents were female, 23% were male. Again, no scientific, no precision rate or level of confidence on the online survey, and just an indication of that. But one thing we do see when we kind of compare the two next to each other, we see some very striking similarities. We asked the question with a $100 budget, how would you allocate park and recreation funds? And we see some very similar results. We see that the number one response was improve, maintain existing parks and recreation facilities with $31, over $31 of that $100 from both surveys being attributed to that. Develop new walking and biking trails was second on the statistically valid survey, and was third on the online community survey, where develop indoor recreation facilities was second on the online community survey, third on the statistically valid survey. The rest of the results were very similar. So while there were some differences in terms of the respondents and the statistical validity of the two surveys, we did have a lot of similarities between the two surveys as well that speak to the needs of the community on a more robust scale.
Thank you, Jason. And then last two slides, this is coming back to the ETQ survey and looking at the priority investments. And because it's a statistically reliable sample that mirrors your community's demographics, there's a greater degree of confidence in these priorities than the online survey ones. This is what the survey firm generates and produces as a combination of two key factors. One is the need and consequently unmet need for any facility, amenity, or program. Second is the importance for that very same facility, amenity, or program. So the intent, the way the survey flows, is someone is asked for a series of park amenities, facilities, or program areas. Do you have a need for this? Yes or no? Based on the ones that say yes, the follow-up is, to what extent is your need being met? And that's where people will say completely met, completely unmet, or somewhere in between. Based on that, then, the follow-up question is now from the same list, rank the top 4 most important facility, amenity, or programs. So the priority investment is the combination of those that say, I have a need, my need is unmet, and this is important to me or members of my household, right? And an example I always give is that, let's say in a place like Oregon City, you have a huge unmet need for cricket fields, but it's important to 5 people. So it's not a true community-wide priority. Some of the other things that are important to the community, you've done a much better job already providing those, but while they are important, they are not a high unmet need. So that's where the combination of what people say is important and their need still is unmet is what rises to the top in this one here. And so what you can see, no surprise for the first couple, paved and unpaved trails are top 2. Water access, Kendall, we've spoken about that quite a bit. We heard from a number of folks as well. So activating more avenues and opportunities on the water. An outdoor amphitheater, indoor walking, jogging spaces, larger community parks or open space, a dog park, and small neighborhood parks came up as high priorities, which means from an option of 200, they are the ones that are at least 100 or higher. Right? You can go down the entire list and you'll see a number of different things as well. The indoor aquatic center was probably right at the border of high end of medium priority. just below high priority, and part of that, from what we heard with staff as well, and talking to Melissa and others too, was just the fact that your capacity is limited to grow, and that's something that the community's been asking for as well. Right? So those are some of the priorities for facility amenity. And this is where, with respect to program areas, the farmers market was number one. Adult fitness and wellness and senior fitness and wellness made up 2 of the top 5. And then special events, as well as cultural enrichment programs, events, etc., were some of the others, right? So in general, there's clearly a sense in terms of diversity of offerings, events, fitness and wellness for all ages as well. And then as you go down the list, you see a number of different ones, from historic preservation and nature camps, to swim lessons, sports, STEAM, youth and after school, and so on as well. Right? So based on all of these, we're going to be sharing this information with staff, finishing the technical reports, as I mentioned, the visioning in December, action and implementation plan in the first quarter of next year, bringing all that back to you in a draft report format as well, get more feedback from you and the community, and then it'll become the final document. So we'll continue coming back to you along the way and ensure that you have no surprises at any step of the process before this becomes a final document. So I'm going to pause here. Kendall, any other comments you want to add? If not, we're happy to take questions or comments.
So Neela, in the next steps, where is the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee? Is that 5, or is that us as 5?
When you say steps for the Parks and Recreation Committee,
yes.
We are actually providing an update.
No, I'm looking in the next steps, 1 through 6. Where is the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee input into this? Because I don't know who the board is. Is the board us, or is the board them?
December 1st, we're taking it to the Parks and Rec to get their input.
Can I try one more time?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm looking at the slide that says next steps. You see that?
Yes.
Okay. So we have finished technical reports, staff visioning, so I have a question about that. You have action and implementation plan, draft report, 5 is board feedback.
Yeah.
Who is the board? Is that us, or is that?
It'll be both. It'll be both there. Yeah.
Okay, well, I would recommend just get them in there. Because some of the feedback I've heard is that they're not totally in the loop, and I know you and I talked that they are in the loop, but if people are going to see this, draft report, feedback from PRAC, feedback from board, whatever, so that's just clear. So in terms of staff visioning, could you explain a little bit more what that is and what that is going to be, or what you envision it will be?
Sure. So it's over a 2-day period on the 5th and the 6th. And we're going to start with sharing findings that you're seeing now with them as well. The program assessment data, so going more into the weeds with what they provided us as well. The input from the community, the survey, and the organizational culture. So basically things that are important for the staff to know before they start thinking of where we want to go. So the second half of the first day and the entire second day will then start in with core values, vision, mission, have the staff grounded themselves on what is a 5 or 10 year outcome we want to get to. Once we talk of the bigger picture, starting with values, then in multiple groups, staff will work with us to co-create strategies by different areas. So for parks, for trails, facility, programs, maintenance, operations, funding, marketing, and communications, for every one of these over several hours, we'll be working with them to create essentially this roadmap that's guided by values and the vision, and is something that they are helping create with us, so there's ownership and there's buy-in. As any true master plan would go, it's meant to be a living document. So we will be aggregating that, putting that into more of an action plan, assigning dollar amounts to that as well. So you get a sense of what implementation can look like and what is financially feasible and what could be potential funding or partnership options as well. So it's going to look at findings, values, and strategies for the future over the 2-day period on December 5th and 6th.
I think
Does that answer your question, Madam Mayor?
I think so. I think that sounds really good. I am very, very interested in the staff's input, since they're the ones that are managing these programs, and I think it's important to me as a commission member to understand how they see themselves fitting into this. And so, you know, they are very talented. I think they have a lot of good ideas, and I want to see that their input is valued and weighed with some great deal of importance, because they're the ones that are on the ground. We're not on the ground every day, and we don't always know about everything that's going on, which, you know, how could we? But they do. And so I think that, you know, that's something I'm really interested in getting feedback on from them about what they see.
Along those same lines, there's mention here of projects that are currently being worked on for the Parks Master Plan, one of which is an organizational cultural survey. Has that been completed? That's for Kendall. That's for Kendall.
We're in the process of tabulating data, running crosstabs. So we don't have any information to share at this point, but the survey has run and has closed.
Jason, can you hear me? Okay, well, the question is for Kendall.
What additional do you need on the question?
Go ahead and repeat it.
Has the organizational culture survey already taken place?
Yes, sir, it has.
Is that something that we are doing I know that we're doing that in conjunction with the Parks Master Plan, but is that something we do on a regular basis?
I will make it something that we do on a regular basis.
And is that, it's a survey in and of itself, correct? And then it's going to be used to, kind of in conjunction with the other staff's conversation, I assume.
Yes.
How will we see the results?
Yeah, do we see that? Specifically the organizational culture survey? That's public record, I assume.
We will bring that back in to share with the results.
I want to see that in full.
Okay.
Mr. Mitchell, Mr. Morrow?
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. A question about the statistically valid survey, and I brought this up at one of the public meetings earlier on in the process. I know how the demographic information is tracked so that it's statistically valid. My concern is, was it geographically represented? And what I mean, we have some areas of Oregon City, particularly the Caulfield neighborhood that I live in, the Park Place neighborhood, that are severely underrepresented in terms of park facility. And if my question is, were those areas sufficiently accurately captured in the survey? Because I think the answers that you would have gotten would be substantially different from those areas compared to the other areas of the cities that are more represented in terms of park and recreation facilities.
The validity of the data really comes down to two key things, right? One, has the survey been randomly sent out across the city so that anybody in the city has effectively an equal opportunity to receive it? And two, does the demographic of the survey sample that responded closely match the demographic of the city? So if they control for who specifically gets in one part of the city, then you lose the randomness and thus the validity of the process. What we could do is ask the survey firm, and they can provide geocoding for where the responses came back from, in order for you all to be able to see if there are parts that are or are not adequately represented. But targeted mailing to a specific area is something that they would not do just for the validity of the process.
Mike, I think what you're kind of asking is, was there a question on the survey that said, what neighborhood do you live in?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I took the survey and I don't believe that was on there.
Yeah.
That would have been something that would have been really good to try to answer that question, even if it was randomly submitted throughout the city. Finding out where people, not specific address, but what neighborhood would give you that type of information. You know, there were 15 people who responded who live in Caulfield, or 45 people from Park Place. I don't know, but that's something to keep in mind if we're doing something in any future surveys. I think it would help tie in the neighborhood association demographic with that as well. And add to your survey.
One other quick comment in terms of that app. If that's going to be used as a part of the master plan process, I think that's a great idea. But if you're talking about something that's going to be used ongoing, where citizens can report concerns or make issues, I guess I would think to have a different app, because we already have the MyOC app. And we should just promote that more and have one place that citizens can bring forth their issues, their concerns, without having a separate one for Parks and Recreation, and then MyOC for Park Public Works and those sorts of things.
There could be a question on MyOC that they could go to very similar to that. My question was, is this going, is this app going to be beta tested first before it gets rolled out?
Yes, so I mean, staff
the need for it, and other than as a part of the master plan process. It just needs to be rolled into MyOC.
I would agree. What do you guys think about that?
It should be consistent citywide, yes.
Yeah, so people, like you said, people have one. We have an app called MyOC, and it could have a question on there, or a place that you could say, do you have a comment about the park? Boom, you go to MyOC and it does the same thing. Commissioner Morrow.
Thank you. My question was similar to the process. So it was randomly sent to 4 or how many households?
They usually get I want to say 15% response rate perhaps. So it's sent to a few thousand households to get over 400 completed ones.
And household mailers was the only way. There were no random digit dials or anything of that sort, I'm assuming. Okay, thank you.
Well, I certainly agree with Commissioner Mitchell's observations. I don't know for how long we've heard from Park Place about their lack of parks, and you get a different response if you live here or there. So I think the geographical component of it is not to be overlooked. I think the most telling slides were the last few. The $100 breakdown started getting us in the right direction. I remember previous studies. Paved walking paths are a big attraction to a lot of people, and I see them in use all the time. And so when you asked about the condition of the parks, I would have liked to have seen that broken down into the paved walking paths. And also the second big component from the community that they used enormously is playground equipment. And I'd like to see what their assessment is of the playground equipment, because I know it's aging or has aged. And I see the number of children and parents and grandparents that take their children to that. So I think those are two major components of your park system. the walking piece is huge and the playground piece is huge. Kind of curious, we had a big, your survey showed very high interest in water access, yet we have an unresolved issue of a boat ramp. That would be nice to bring that to a conclusion at some point. I know in this environment where it rains 8 months out of the year, I don't know what you do about indoor activities. I know there's some limited offerings, but that's a major pursuit, and I won't pursue that further. Those are just my observations on the study, but I think it's a good start, but I think how you use it's important. I'm sorry, what?
May I make a comment in response to that, please?
Sure.
I think to both your point, we appreciate sort of the neighborhood focus as well. One of our technical reports is also going to be what we call equity mapping. So the idea is to be able to map every one of the inventories for park acreages and amenities that you have for service areas across the city and be able to see what part of the city is overserved or underserved by what kind of amenity, be it playground, be it a trail, be it splash pad, tennis courts, basketball, whatever you have, right? Or just simply park acreages. That's going to be really insightful because then it is a very objective and transparent data source where now it's not Commissioner Mal or Kendall asking for a playground in my backyard. It's the fact that you are not served by that amenity within a certain driving or walking distance of where you live. That's going to give you all a very defensible tool in order to either make recommendations to develop or to push back and say no, because the maps will clearly show where the gaps and overlaps will be.
Well, I know that one of the goals of this commission is livability, and parks are a big piece of that, and access to parks is a big piece of that. I also know that what we previously described as pocket parks, those small units are high upkeep. It's a lot more difficult than larger single station parks. So I think there's some good information here. What's important is what we do with the information. So thanks.
Yeah, I understand the concern about pocket parks, but I think in areas that are underserved, they could provide something. Even if it's just a respite to sit under some nice trees with a bench or something. And, you know, again, we work on trying to see if we can get people to help adopt a park, that type of thing.
You bite the bullet and you do it.
Yeah, because we have always these little spots of leftover pieces of property. Jason, you were talking so fast, I didn't quite understand what you were talking about under the tab for race and ethnicity and the age. You said something about seniors and some new term you were using, but you went light speed. I just completely missed it.
I'm sorry. Yeah, so active adults is the terminology that we've been using for, we don't call them seniors anymore. So the active adult population, that population 55 plus.
So are there non-active adults too? Are there non-active adults as well?
Yeah, we have found that the active adult terminology seems to be more acceptable. But yes, to your point, we're aware that they're not all active.
What group are you classifying those active adults as? In the statistics.
Those are sedentary.
Did you understand the question?
No, I'm sorry, you're breaking up on me.
I said, what is the age group that this survey is classifying the active adults as?
We consider the active adults the 55 us, more specifically probably 55 to 74. And then your 75 and older would probably be considered more your senior population at this point.
Mr. Commissioner O'Donnell's giving a thumbs up. Okay, sorry. Okay, so my other question then is, I was looking at the race and ethnicity, and since we just had our DEI report, I think the breakout of the Hispanic population aligns very much with the tourism study that we did, which is showing that those folks in that demographic group are going to be our major visitors to our communities. So there may be some correlation there between that study and this study, and that might be something you might want to look at. I was very interested in the chart with the blue lines where we've got 2010 census, 2020 census. So some of those, is there going to be an explanation in the plan about what the number is for the yellow line, the gray line, and the orange line?
Yeah. So the lines are just what the average annual growth rate is for that time frame. So the first one would be the growth rate from 2010 to 2020. Then that line goes to the next one, which would be the growth rate from 2020 to 2022. Then 5 years after that, to 5 years after that, to 5 years after that.
That's not.
So it's an average annual growth rate.
Okay, that's not what I understood that to be. What I was seeing here was you showing the number, the 2010 census. So you've got blue, light blue, orange, whatever, and that's the percentage of people in our community and that ethnicity.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're talking about the race chart. I'm sorry. I thought we were talking about the population one. Yeah, the race one, there's a chart at the top with the color coordination with each race.
And I asked is the detailed information in the study going to break out those numbers?
I guess I'm not sure what you're asking for.
I'm asking you, let's just use the 2020 census. So the dark blue line you say is 10%, the light blue line is 82%, the green one is 4%. What is the yellow, the gray, and the orange?
I understand, sorry. Yeah, so that those numbers don't fit in those smaller numbers, but yes, you'll have access to the full tabular data that comes from the report.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Anything else? Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Sorry for the technical difficulties of hearing. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody.
Wherever Kendall went, I think he just jumped off our screen.
We'll follow up with them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Mr. Lewis. Thank you, thank you. So we're on to item number 9, well now it's 9C, resolution number 22-36, adopting the Oregon City Sidewalk Replacement Assistance Program.
So we're pulling up a PowerPoint. You emailed it to me?
Yeah.
Earlier today?
Not today. No, it was about last week.
Hold on just a second while we find that.
Stay tuned.
I hadn't heard that.
He didn't say anything.
Did you guys vote on that?
No, I did not. I find your PowerPoints very interesting and exhilarating.
Oh, no. That's...
Has nothing to do with that. Adding a little levity to the meeting. I do find them interesting. He's going to be the star of our show at our Clackamas Cities meeting. We got people chuckling here. You can watch. We'll tape it for you, Frank, so you can watch it from home.
Okay.
I want to brag about it.
Okay, well, I think we're getting close here, so, Mayor and Commissioners, thank you very much for your time. I don't want to take a lot of time because I know it's getting late, but we do want to give you a program update. That was part of our commitment when we adopted this back in February of 2022. So we've been into the program for a few months now. Really, this is about asking you to adopt the program. This is nice. The sound system is different than what I'm used to. So anyway, the resolution that we adopted before was more of a pilot program or a temporary program. So we're asking you tonight, we think that this program is a program that's been successful. We've seen it play out that way. We've provided a lot of grant funding to a lot of folks. I'm going to go through that. For just background, I'll go through a little bit of details about the program that we've been implementing and show you some results as to where that's at, and hopefully work to adoption of a new resolution that would make this a permanent program. So again, there was times when I really kind of questioned this program, but it has really worked out well. We're hearing good comments from the community. Staff like it because we've always had to enforce the sidewalk code that we've had and the municipal code that we have, but we didn't have this opportunity to help the community with the repair costs. And so it has been both well received by the community and by the staff who implement these kinds of requirements. So the program that we adopted was adopted back in February. City Commission approved it, and we approved a $200,000 budget. Really the main requirements for this are, or the main, not so much requirements, but the things that the program offers is site reimbursement, and that's not per address, that's per tree damaged area, sidewalk area, of $1,500 reimbursement maximum. And then the other big thing was the reduction of permit fees. That was another big thing that the City Commission. We also want some accountability here, so we're asking the applicants to provide a couple of bids. It definitely has to, they have to show some justification that it has to be proven that it's by the damage is a result of the tree as opposed to some other problem like a surface repair or something like that. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm flipping them on my screen.
Yeah, it's not moving.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
There we go.
Thank you, Tony. So that's the one that I just went through. Okay, so really for the last, this is about 9 months worth of data. We've had, so I'm going to show you some data in a couple different forms, but over the last period we've had 78 applicants. 27 of those, if you remember, there's provisions for looking back. So that we've seen 27 of those, and then 51 have been new permits. We have provided funding to property owners in approximately $188,000 of the $200,000 that was provided. So we think that $200,000 number was a good estimate, and something that we're continuing to support or recommend that the program provide per year. So, and then you're just seeing some averages and maximums and minimums that we've reimbursed out of those 78 applications. For the 78, so some properties have more than one, so we've seen 154 tree sites that were repaired, so 154 repair applications. Again, generally there's 2 per site, but we've seen a maximum of 6 per site. So this side got a little confusing, and I probably should have fixed a couple of lines on here, but in talking to Josh Wheeler a little bit about it, what this side says is we've gone through, we were at a pretty high number in 2021. We had 72 code enforcement issues, and 58 of those were repaired in 2021. I know it says or 2022, but 58 were repaired in 2021. That was a high number because of a lot of the work that went on with the Trailview neighborhood, but in my past, I know there's been other neighborhoods that we've enforced on before as well. So I think we're going to see ebb and flow depending on how enforcement happens, how those calls come in, and folks. So we may see, like for instance, in 2022, we've only seen 38 cases and a lot less repairs, but I think that will come and go. We still have, for 2021, we still have 10 open permits, and 4 of those have actually been referred to code enforcement. So they, even with the grant program, they haven't taken action on their repairs. So Resolution 22-36 formally adopts this temporary program as permanent. It reemphasizes the $200,000 per year that would be allocated for sidewalk replacements, and we would pay for that out of our transportation fund. You know, would we propose reductions or increases? That remains to be seen. If we need to, we would bring that back to the City Commission, but for now, we're recommending we maintain that $200,000 budget. And we've still got for this budget year $22,000, and we think if that number were to be exceeded, we've got enough contingency in the transportation fund to continue to help those property owners. There are some program requirements. This is kind of repeat. Obviously, there's got to be tree impact. There's got to be some form of a trip hazard. You still got to get permits. We still ask for bids. One owner at a time, so we don't duplicate locations. If there was, a problem this year and 10 years from now, a property owner came back with that same location wanting to have it fixed, we are tracking that location, that specific location, so they wouldn't qualify twice. And they must actually do the work. After kind of running the program, working with the property owners, we have added to the program, sometimes the tree lifts the sidewalk but doesn't actually result in what we would typically think of as an offset of the sidewalk panels, but it does enough to lift that panel to create kind of a peak, and it still can be considered a trip hazard. So we've allowed those kinds of repairs be included in the program as well. At least that's how we've been managing it, and that's what's proposed.
So that would include, in that situation, they maybe could grind that down?
Well, in that situation, if they were removing the tree, again, if it was tree-induced, it would likely have a pretty significant root under it. They'd probably have to remove that when they were repairing the rest of the sidewalk, and so they would actually repair that. It wouldn't necessarily be ground down. It would be a repair. So that is one point, if you remember, is sidewalk grinding. While it's allowed and we have kind of broadened its use, it's not part of the program.
It's not a permanent solution.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
So this is just eligibility, which is kind of speaks to what that grinding topic. But obviously, if there's no tree involved, but yet there's an offset, so a settlement, like what's shown in that picture there, that wouldn't necessarily qualify for the program. The property owner would be responsible for that. But and then if there's just sidewalk damage and there's a nearby tree, but it's not necessarily resulted in a trip hazard, it's more of a quality of the sidewalk construction, that would also not be eligible. But trip hazards, obviously, would be, and then the new eligible piece that we've suggested in the program is if that tree lifts it, but doesn't necessarily result in a traditional offset joint, what we think of as trip hazard, we would include that in the program. So really, if a street tree has damage, I guess I need to clarify that too. We're talking street trees here, not trees that are on private property behind the sidewalk. If it's a street tree that's resulted in the damage to the sidewalk, whether it be lifted, trip hazard, or just a grade change, that could qualify for the grant.
Mr. Lewis, I think what my concern is about the one where you have repair required trip hazard, my concern is that there are degrees of trip hazards in my own personal opinion. And I'm looking at what I can barely see of that tree there, and that is a fairly substantial tree. And one of my concerns has been all along, because the McLaughlin neighborhood has been subject to weekend tree removals over time that has been pretty much epidemic. And we've seen lifts like this where there's a large tree and it just gets mowed down without any opportunity to say, is there another alternative to just taking the tree out? And I'm not talking about grinding, but other options. And we are losing our tree canopy, and that's what concerns me, is that, you know, somebody decides they don't like leaves, so they fabricate some story about, oh, this is a tripping hazard, and then they go. Give you an example is that Washington Street between 2nd and 3rd used to have multiple tree canopy, shaded the street, kept it cool. That's pretty much, that block has been completely denuded because there were small lifts without any opportunity. And what happens is that we get the tree contractor who says they're an arborist, and I'm putting it in quotes, but they are also the one who is getting the job. So to me, there's a conflict of interest right there and then, because they're not evaluating it from the standpoint of what can we do to try to save this tree. They're evaluating from the standpoint is, oh, if I say this, I'm going to get this job. So I don't know how to address that, but it is a problem. It is a big problem.
Yes, I agree.
So I'm not asking you to answer the question. I'm just pointing this out, that this is a problem that we need to try to solve, because it really, to me, gives us, we're a Tree City USA, and I know the requirements are very minimal, but that means something to me. And when you have an entire block base completely wiped out, and now we've got, you know, what I like to call stick trees that are going to take from now, I mean, I won't see them in my lifetime, and this all ties into the bigger picture of global warming and problems this way. So somehow or another, we need to figure out how to integrate those two things and help our community understand that we need to look for alternatives. So that's my soapbox for today about that. But I think what we're doing here with this program is great. I have heard nothing in my community meetings that I've had in Park Place in the last 6 months. I have heard very positive comments about this. They are, of course, they wish it would be paid in full, but I said that's not going to happen. We have to spread the money out. But I guess the question I have is, how did we, or do we, integrate this with the Friends of Trees program? Because when I was in Park Place recently, I know that the tree planting was coming up, and there was a lot. I was in Trailview, and there were lots of Friends of Trees signs, so I hope people took advantage of the inexpensive cost, but even though we're paying for part of that. But for them, it was inexpensive for them to get the, you know, the $35 tree and not have to spend, you know, $200 on whatever. And I thought if we had, I'm assuming we did that, there was some integration with that.
All very good points. I would say there's hypersensitivity by your staff to the issues that you're raising. And when given the opportunity, I can't talk about the Saturday afternoon, tree removers. Hopefully code enforcement learns about that and they deal with that. But whether it be the Public Works Department who offers and recommends, and we've been it's not a requirement, so if somebody comes in, but we will go to that site. We will meet with that property owner. We'll give them recommendations on whether, sometimes we recommend grinding. One, because the program, if everybody came in all at once and wanted to replace something, small that could be managed with sidewalk grinding, even though it's not part of the program, we would recommend sidewalk grinding for that location. So when given that opportunity, we're aware of the concern for elimination of tree canopy in Oregon City, right? So there is that. I don't know the connection, but we work hand in hand with planning, so there's still the tree removal permit requirement that is needed to obtain from planning, and you know, we've got Pete Walter back, and Aquila, I think, is sensitive to trees as well, so they're still you know, taking the charge with regard to that tree program. So
that's okay. So I was trying to figure out whether we had integrated the issues we were dealing with, particularly in Trailview, and making people aware that there was a Friends of Trees program. Because like I said, I saw tons of signs that says Friends of Trees, so I knew trees were going to get planted there. And it was some of the sidewalk issues.
I think the integration is staff are much more familiar with, public works staff are much more familiar with the Friends of Tree program and the opportunities there, because their main objective is to try to get that property owner as much help as possible.
Well, I was going to say that's a great thing if you're doing that, because that's perfect. It helps them, helps us, gives the neighborhood person an opportunity to get a tree for, you know, a reasonable price. They have a big planting plan. It goes forward, and you know, they're going to get replanted. You know, particularly like I said in Trailview. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for working with planning on that.
Okay.
Gentlemen, do you have any questions? Are we ready for a motion?
Just real quick, a couple more slides, sorry.
Okay.
Lots of public information available. I know that was important to the commission as well. So if you want to repair your sidewalk in Oregon City, there's a dedicated web page, brochures, lots of information. Our forms have become very, very simple. I know we included the application form in the packet. It's really about a half a page worth of information that the property owner needs to fill out. Now, there are attachments in there that was also included in the packet that we need to get from the property owner, but we're giving them a comprehensive list of what they need to provide. So with that, yes, we're really asking for a motion to adopt Resolution 2236. Happy to answer any questions you have, but we'd like to move on and continue doing the good work that this commission really sponsored this idea, and it's really worked out very nicely.
So Mr. Morrow, Mr. Mitchell, would you like to make a motion?
Resolution number 22-36.
There's a second.
All right. Second.
Moved and seconded. Let's call the roll.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Adamaro.
Aye.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell.
What?
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
No.
No.
And Mayor Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Motion passes.
I think that's the sixth commissioner, isn't it? The person you called?
We just call them on the phone.
We just called him on the... Okay. All right.
Any phone.
Item number 9D, do we have a motion? Don't all speak up at once.
Is this Warcraft Marina?
We had on the agenda. I'm on 9D, which is formerly 9C, Sportcraft Marina License Agreement. I said, do we have a motion to table?
Sure, I'll make a motion to table that.
To a date certain, please.
I think December 7th.
December 7th is what we decided upon. Table it till December 7th.
There a second? Well, for purposes of this, I'll second it, if I can. Any further discussion, or may I call for the question? Call the question, Mr. Wiley.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Adamaro.
Aye.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell.
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
No.
And Mayor Denise McGriff.
Aye. Motion carries. Communications. Mr. Conkle, do you have any other news for us today? I believe you were briefly talking to us about we talk about litigation? Or, anyway, court case has been resolved, I guess.
Yeah, so today, I did send it around to the commission and the urban renewal commissioners. The Court of Appeals has entered the decision in Williams versus Oregon City concerning Charter Amendment 59, Section E, which limited the use of urban renewal funds. The Court of Appeals affirmed the circuit court decision, essentially making Section 59E of the charter unenforceable.
Anything else?
That's all that I have for tonight.
Just a reminder that, well, it's not on the agenda, that on the 26th of January, we are hosting the Clackamas Cities meeting. Just put it on your calendar, whether you're going to come or not, but Lisa will be getting back to you about your attendance later. Do we have any communications from commissioners? I was just noting Commissioner Morrow looks pretty fantastic in his Oregon City elevator going up shirt that he's wearing in Kansas City. So he's proudly representing us.
Yes, from Kansas City. I just have a quick question. Are those new microphones on the dais that I see?
Yes. Can you hear us better?
Well, I just look different, and I remember the city manager saying that the consultants were coming in at the end of October, I believe.
Yep. I will take a picture of it and send it to you.
Well, but has that work occurred is my question.
It seems to be working better.
Okay, well, I was saying that on the Zoom end, it is not working better. This entire time, people who have been speaking on Zoom, I've been hearing echoes. So assuming that this was not a problem on the live stream version, you will have to go and watch the meeting so that I can understand the parts that I was not able to. And was that a problem for you as well, Commissioner Mitchell?
Yeah, the echo on anybody who's speaking on Zoom is bad.
It was a problem to another citizen at home also.
It was bad here.
The consultants, we were having a hard time hearing them, but I don't know if that was their connection or our connection.
But not only that, I will say that those microphones there for the public and staff were horrible tonight. Like, I couldn't hear hardly
Those
anything.
are still the old ones.
I know. But the sound in general is still bad, worse tonight than it's been.
So the consultant is coming back on Friday. I'd really appreciate having your feedback after the meeting. We'll take some notes and make sure that they work on it.
Commissioner O'Donnell, do you have anything for communications?
No, I do not.
Commissioner Smith?
No.
I have a couple that I just wanted to report to you. I attended the impact meeting last week, and the topic that concerns us had to do with, well, two things: the RTP needs assessment and performance measures. And I can tell you that I did not comment on it, but I concur with Councilor Brent Sherman from Happy Valley, who reiterated once again that the RTP talks about transportation and reducing the number of trips. And again, he spoke very eloquently about the fact that Clackamas County is very underserved, and the RTP isn't going to help us one hoot because we don't have the infrastructure to make this work. So that was pretty much it. The other thing that came up at the impact meeting was the recommendation by Metro on the UGB exchange that we had previously discussed. Clackamas County came out, Chair Tootie Smith testified that she had issues with the stuff out by Damascus, which doesn't really affect us, but that was their big issue. And then there was an informational session about homelessness and regional cooperation, which I need to get some more information on. I also wanted to bring to your attention that I attended the City Commission meeting in West Lynn on Monday, just to hear their discussion regarding their city attorney issue. They are going back and forth with regard to whether they want to have inside counsel versus outside counsel, which is not totally our issue, but I thought it would behoove me to just listen and hear what they had to say. They did give me a memorandum from their legal counsel, Jordan Ramus, which I will be happy to give to Mr. Wiley, that he can copy and send to you, because there were some interesting things in here that I thought might be of interest to you all. Other than that, I have Metropolitan Mayor's meeting tomorrow, and I know that there's some big push with regard to us coming up with a statement regarding homelessness, and I just haven't paid attention to it because I was trying to get through November 8th, and so now I'm trying to get back into figuring out what it is the heck that they want. So, other than that, being anything else, yes. Who? Yes, I did. Mike, did you have anything? I didn't miss you.
No, I don't.
Okay. I'm going to just call on Mr. Zook because I can. Do you have anything to report on the wonderful world of finance? Do we still have money? Okay, we're good then. All right. Being no further business, I will call the meeting adjourned. Thank you all.